Welcome back to the AME Food Safety Show. I love Johnny Cash singing this song. He's keeping a close watch on this heart of his.
I keep a close watch on this heart of mine.
I love that song. Why? Because you are the person that's responsible for your health. One thing I like everybody to know, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, we're made up mostly of water. I've heard estimates of 50, 60, 70% of our bodies are made up of water that you ingest, that you control, that you hydrate. What I want to do in the next segment, in this segment right here, I want you to know that we consume water every day in one format or another, and we need to consume more. Why? It helps clean us out, cleans out everything, adds more water to your system. Next, we need to consume safe, clean water. Anybody disagree with me on that? It's important to drink clean, safe water. I have found people nowadays are consuming a lot of bottled water. That's what we're going to talk about. Bottled water has a lot of issues. We're going to cover some of them, but the most important issue for us is to consume clean, safe water. Let's begin with our slide presentation. First slide. Bottled water. What is it? Where does it come from? Look at all these brands. Somebody out there has consumed one of these. I know I've consumed a lot of them. And rather than asking for a soda nowadays, I'm kind of thinking I go to restaurants and ask for a bottle of water. I have to ask what kind. It's a decision-making tree. I don't do it every time, but I do try to find out if there's clean water in that house, because I'm always suspect about municipal grade water. So we need the water, we need clean water. When you look at those bottles, you think about your buying decisions and the information you've used to make those decisions. Next slide. All right. Everybody loves advertising. I like it. It's entertaining. Sometimes it's informational, but most of the times it's propaganda, telling us something to induce us to buy. It's persuasive. But I'm telling you right now, from me to you, don't believe the advertising. That sounds horrible. I know all those good meaning managers, marketing, advertising, have put a lot of time into giving an idea off to you that water comes from a stream. And I doubt it. I don't believe it's true. The label may show a peaceful mountain stream. Isn't that great? A peaceful mountain. Somebody come up to a stream and just pouring it out and drinking fresh water. The water, I'm going to pop that bubble for you right now and tell you that that water inside that bottle may not be pure and pristine. Believe it or not, that's my first issue with you. Do not believe the labels or the pictures. Next slide. Here's the real reality of most bottled water. That about 25% of these bottled water products come from a municipal tap. And they just plop it right into the bottle. Some of them will filter, irradiate, do other kinds of things like ultraviolet light. Remember that little device out here? They run it through that ultraviolet light trying to kill all the organisms, and they filter it out using a very small micron. In other words, a filter that crosses across that hatch, and the big stuff won't get through. It's called a 0.45 micron or 0.21. But the bottom line through all that process, and they plop it in that bottle. I've actually worked with bottlers, co-packers they call them, and they take that product and plop it directly into the bottle. Now, the bottle has inherent bacteria inside that bottle. Many of them do not do a random or check because there are so many bottles. They may run 2,000, 3,000 bottles in a run. But that water can either be from a municipal source or a filtered source, but it ends up in that bottle. So those are the issues. Let's take a look at it. Aquafina, Dasani, and many other brands come right directly from the tap, and then they add some other stuff through it. The bottles aren't required to list the source of the water. You need to do that. If you like a particular brand, oh, hey, I'm going to buy this because it's cheap. It comes from XYZ store. It's got the store label on it. Great. Find out on the internet, the easiest way to do it, type in the brand name, find out the source. If it comes out of a ditch. Now, I'm going to say something about this right here. Me and my partner went down to Mexico City. We tested their local brands, There were about 12 of them. There was one fellow there was very proud. He showed us the water they used as this source water. It came from the sewer. It was green. Then he put it through this filtration process. He made up himself. And then it looked kind of good, but when we ran it through our DNA test for total bacteria, it was totally contaminated with bacteria. That was in Mexico. I'm going to say this to you right now. The bottlers aren't required. You need to do your own homework. Next slide. Some of these bottlers, I mentioned them right here, Aquafina and Nestle Pure, do disclose, and you can research it. They get them from public sources. Now, what does that mean, public source? That means come from a city or a county or a municipality. Aquafina comes from public. Nestle Pure, I got that bottle right there in the middle. It comes from a public, private, or deep well sources. They do indicate each bottle is different because they all come from different runs. Dasani on its website, but not on the label, will tell you it comes from local water. What does that mean? It comes from a municipality. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to treat it, put some other chemicals in. I do know that Dasani puts a chemical in there. First, they clean it out, then they put a chemical in there to make it taste good. That's up to your choice. It's like buying a soda bottle. In fact, it's the same price as a soda bottle if you think about it. But I will tell you right now, pure glacier water comes from a public water system in Alaska. Maybe that glacier came from some source before, was the original source, but then they filtered it, came through a city, municipal, cleaning water surface, and then plopped up in that bottle. My theme to you today, research your vendor of choice, find out what you're drinking. And all the water doesn't come from heaven, it comes from some manufacturer. Next slide. All right, as I mentioned to you before, I went down on an experiment to Mexico City for the government. We checked out a lot of vendors. Some of them were contaminated. On the left, you see bottles indiscriminate, and on the right, you see what's known as a microbiological plate, which someone has added growth media, albumin from a cow, and then swabbed a sample from that water, and guess what? Those bugs grew up quick. So, what's coliform bacteria? Some people, it's actually a collection of bacteria, usually found in poop water. Water that somebody's pooped or urinated into. You can find in there molds, yeast, chemicals that you didn't think were in there. Arsenic is very common in water because you can't get rid of it. But the FDA has not tested bottled water or had any rules on it since 2010, and even then it's only E. coli. And they're even talking, we don't know if that's E. coli species or E. coli 15787 or any of the hemorrhagic that go into your stomach and actually eat a hole through it, kill you. So the FDA has said that it is the manufacturer's responsibility to ensure that the product complies with laws and regulations. There are very few third-party audits to go to a water company. If you like a particular local water, let's say it's 10 miles down the road, it wouldn't hurt you to go down and ask the guy what's going on. You need to have several tests in water because it's not a batch. It's continuous flow. You ask them, do you do 100% testing of the water before you treat it? And then after you treat it to see what the drops in microbial levels are or the chemistry. Also, if they've had any third-party audits, if they have any FDA audits, those are all important questions for you if you like consuming that product. Next slide. All right, I was just talking with Mike here. He was surprised that every city, every municipality, every public water treatment facility has to issue a report. Here in Fresno, Central California, the Fresno city has a public utility division in which they have a water division. And they issue, I'll put the latest one in there, it's 2003, and it gives you the contaminant levels as they have been tested. When I used to sell analytical equipment to these water companies, I was amazed how much equipment they had. I was also amazed how much old equipment they had and how much older technology they had and the lack of specificity and sensitivity in some of the older equipment. They still use it for reporting, which was fine. But one thing I'm going to reveal to everybody here, there's no such thing as 100% pure water. There's only microbiological pure grade water, MBW. And that's used in chemical experiments and biological experiments. I use it in my experiments. It's clean of everything in there. But most drinking water has something in it. So the municipal water supply has a report. You can check it. And then they give their primary standards and unregulated contaminants. Every water has a little bit of something. Don't think it's 100% pure because it comes out of that spout. One thing I'm going to add to that is that from that facility, that water treatment facility, to your house is a long road. It's coming through pipes made of iron, copper, plastic, however it comes to your house. The older the house you live in, older facility you live in, more likely at the end of that tap, that drip coming out is more contaminated because it's added to accumulation coming to your house. It might come out 100% pure out of that plant, which I know it isn't, ends up in your kitchen. It's not going to be 100% pure. That's my promise to you. Next slide. All right. Believe it or not, bottled water has recalls. And those recalls are not as frequent as you might think, but they're out there. Why? Because they can pull it out, because they know the stores they sold it to, and you would never know it. Because a lot of them don't publicize it. They don't have to let consumers know that their product becomes contaminated. And you've heard a lot about these water bottles having plastic on the outside, and light rays come through there, and a lot of that light rays breaks up the chemical composure of that bottle, and it goes through and contaminates the water. Yeah, if you leave that bottle out there in your car for 10 days, and it's 110 degrees, and water and air is right in it, yeah, it's going to get contaminated with some of those chemicals, like a benzene. So these are the issues that you want to think about. A lot of these bottles are not sterilized prior to use, so there's mold in there. It could be coliform. I even saw one article said it was a cricket found in one of these bottled waters. Just look at it before you drink it, folks. Next slide. All right, here are my suggestions. It's the last side of this segment. Don't get offended. When you walk into the grocery store or you walk into that big box store and you see all that bottle sitting there, it's not all the same, folks. Every manufacturer has different standards. Look at it. If there's a cricket in there, obviously don't buy it. But research the manufacturer. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not against the law. Investigate what source they used. My wife loves a certain big box. We buy it all the time in them big containers. Yeah, we haven't dropped dead yet. Well, look, my only theory for you to think about, and I offer it to you as your own safety, ask questions about the products before you drink it. Next segment is going to be particularly interesting. Every house that has a kitchen and a bathroom. Thank you very much.